So we in Avincis operate in 10 different countries. We have a broad range of bases operating a number of different types of helicopters, as I've discussed. Predominantly a European operator. We have over 650 pilots operating about 240 aircraft. And as you can see, the nature of our operation is varied. We are predominantly a helicopter emergency medical services operator, which is HEMS, in the top left corner as you see it there. We operate HEMS with medical crews, both doctors and paramedics. We have firefighting both fixed wing in our big CL-415s, our water bombers, and we also do firefighting with our heavy lift helicopters, our L2 Pumas and our 225s. And the other ones there, you can see search and rescue and offshore energy. Search and rescue speaks for itself, operating complex helicopters with complex crews in all sorts of very challenging environments, from rescuing fishermen from the sea out in the middle Atlantic to rescuing American skiers when they fall on the downhill section of the latest Italian Olympics. We also run offshore energy, so oil and gas. We do a lot of ferrying oil and gas personnel out to the rigs, but we also do renewable energies where we operate to wind farms. Both of them are very different skill sets from a pilot point of view. Offshore oil and gas is very airline orientated in so much that it's scheduled, you know where you're going to land and you know how many people you're taking. Wind farm turbines is a growing industry. Obviously, it's a renewable, sustainable industry. The challenge is operating to turbine tops, which are up to 800 feet above the water. And then finally, we have our air ambulance services with our fixed wing. These are throughout Norway and throughout Spain, Canaries and the Balearics. Obviously, we have a remit to transfer patients much further afield than our helicopters can. So we can combine them or we can use them uniquely to move patients all across Europe and all around the world. Obviously, like every other aviation industry, we have a heavy reliance on MRO. This is probably the most critical part of our organization. Unlike airlines, helicopters have to be bunched around a central hub, a much more localized hub. So our requirement for maintenance, again, becomes more regionalized. So we have multiple centers, both in Spain, Italy, and the Nordics, where we bring our helicopters back to do their base maintenance. And then for the future, what does unmanned air vehicles, electric eVTOL vehicles mean for us? Well, principally nothing at the moment because they're not ready for what we want them to do. But what we do use UAVs for is for surveillance sensors. So we use sensor systems to help detect fire, look for people, and any of the other assets that we can use. But principally, they're used to help coordinate and manage our teams. So the fleet we fly, we have a broad variety again in helicopters. We fly some older 20, 30-year-old helicopters, which are robust. We use them, call them tractors, because their job is to lift lots of water and to put it on the fires. Very high degree of pilot skill, low requirement to fly on instruments and at night, because we fight fires by day. We also have more sophisticated aircraft, which are brand new, multi-channeled autopilots with full glass displays, highly automated, very much more akin to a modern airliner. These aircraft can land themselves, take off themselves, and hover themselves. Again, given some of the unique environments where we operate, particularly in the Nordics, operating up into the Arctic Circle, where icing and snow landings are very prevalent, to operating down in the southern Spain and Italy, where heat, dust, and volcanic environments are much more prevalent. So the range of operating environments that our crews have to work in is significant. And to do that, we need modern aircraft. And like I said, our fleet is fairly broad and extensive, but we have to use the modern fleet. And for firefighting and search and rescue, again, the CL-415s, you'll see those predominantly in Italy and Spain. These aircraft lift about 4 tons of water, and they are the most effective firefighting system that we have in our arsenal. The firefighting belt, as we call it, is growing. You won't have missed the fact that firefighting and fires are becoming more prevalent throughout Europe, but also in South America, Australia, and Australasia. We used to refer to the fire belt as Spain, Italy, and Greece. Now it's Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, and moving further north, all the way up through Poland up to Estonia. France has had more fires. Even in the Nordics, in Sweden and Norway, they are having more fires. Now, it is a wrong thing to boast about, but it is a growth industry, and it's something that we as a business are having to respond to. Firefighting and modern firefighting systems is a huge area for us. In the winter, so currently we're operating in Chile in South America, where our aircraft are flying nearly 24 hours a day, operating, putting out fires. And then in March and April, we'll bring them back up to Spain, conduct the maintenance on them, and then push them out into the European firefighting season. And as you can see, the heavier the helicopter, the more water you can carry, the more effective the water bombing can be. And search and rescue. Search and rescue is the most technically sophisticated operation that we do. Operating at night on NVGs, multi-pilots, with winch crewmen and swimmers. The guys jump out of the back of the helicopter, swim and do the rescue, and then the winch ops come in and pick them up. It's the most incredible thing I've ever flown with, watching guys in the middle of the Atlantic at night jump out of the helicopter into the water and swim to pick up. But it's an incredibly satisfying job to do. The fact that you go out and rescue people that have no other option than you to recover them really focuses your mind as a pilot. The mission planning, the teamwork not only between the two pilots, but also the pilots and the crew is such a thrilling experience to be involved with. So the experience requirements, what makes us subtly different to some of the airlines is that, as you can tell, there's a level of complexity to our operation that requires some experience in advance. We can't take just ab initio pilots out of the flying course and put them into such sophisticated roles. These roles are very much risk assessed. The risk that we operate in is much more dynamic. And with that, we are required both by the regulator and our customers to increase the level of experience. So for HEMS operations, particularly, to be a captain in a HEMS operation, you need a lot of experience that's very difficult to get hold of. And the majority of our operations are single pilot. We do operate co-pilots in some HEMS operations in the more complex and larger aircraft types. But our customers, because of the nature of the operation, insist on virtually 1,000 hours piloting command in a similar environment, which again is a challenge on its own. If you look at typical hours for FOs and commanders, that's quite an ask. And we operate on NVGs. We operate winching at night in the mountains. We operate IFR. So a pilot could take off from a base in blue sky, fly up to the mountain, do a winch, go IFR into icing conditions at night on NVGs, back to the hospital to land at the hospital on an instrument approach. So the level of skill set that you have to accomplish all the way around that mission to execute that mission, whilst you've potentially got a patient in the back of your aircraft that's gone into cardiac arrest. So your clinicians are performing cardiac arrest in the back of the helicopter, and you as a crew are trying to make rational decisions in the front. It is a significant challenge, and that in turn is challenged by the required experience that we need. But we are working hard as a business because the helicopter business, predominantly in Europe, is struggling to get enough experience in. So we do offer co-pilot pathways. There are opportunities where you can come in and do firefighting, build your experience, build your knowledge of operating in challenging, dusty environments. We also operate a number of air ambulances where you can come in as a co-pilot with very low hours. And again, building those hours, building that experience as we work. And of course, offshore helicopters is a very established route for young pilots to come in to build their experience in a more controlled environment. Nonetheless challenging, but it is more controlled in offshore where you know what your loads are, you know what your destination is, and it's a much more airline-orientated flight process. But yes, it's without a shadow of a doubt, it's a significant challenge. So the typical entry requirements, CPLH, CPLA, absolutely, obviously. Some of our operations will require instrument ratings, European instrument ratings. We can look at doing conversions. One of the biggest challenges, though, for us is language. because where each country that you operate in, you'll be operating with local medics, local clinicians, local firefighting teams. That does mean that your local language skills will have to be to a certain level. Spanish, Italian, French or English, depending on which country you're operating in. If you're from one of the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, any one of those languages will suffice for all 4 of those countries, which is great for you guys. But that also is where some of our most challenging flying is as well. On an annual basis, your hourly rates can be expected in the EMS world to be between 200 to 300 hours. So again, as a co-pilot, that's quite a challenge to sit there and wait for maybe 5 or 6 years to get your command. Oil and gas, though, is very much more reflective of traditional conventional airline hours, between 500 and 700 hours a year. And same with the firefighting as well. Firefighting is very seasonal. Obviously, Northern Hemisphere firefighting season tends to run from March until October. We then flip it and send you to South America, and then you can run the other sort of counter season, we call it. But again, a lot of our pilots decide to work the summer firefighting season and then go and work somewhere else for the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. Again, another very credible option. But as I alluded to, the firefighting season for us is already getting longer and wider. So actually, when I first joined this company 10 years ago, firefighting was April to September. It's already March until October, and not just the countries we're working in more and more countries each year. And that's it. Hopefully the guys have got my video and they might be able to put it up. Great. So if we just watch the video and then I'll take any questions after that. Looks like we'll give it another go. Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for submitting questions for Alex and the team at Avincis. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I wanted to start with one which I noticed and I find interesting. You've been there for 10 years. What kept you for a considerable amount of time, and what do you like the most about your job?
I'm very fortunate in my role. I'm an ex-military pilot, and I came to work in this environment having done 15 years in the military. The variety, the sense of teamwork, and the job satisfaction is second to none. It is without doubt a risky job. There are elements to it that will push your abilities, skills, and your humanity in terms of how you respond to pressure. But there is nothing more satisfying than a successful outcome in any one of these roles that we do. And the ability to do it with such a technical team from different backgrounds, not just pilots, engineers, but also clinicians, firefighters, and the engineers. You are much closer in this environment. As you can see, some of our bases are geographically, miles away from anywhere. So it's just 2 pilots, 2 engineers, the firefighting team, and the clinicians. And that sense of togetherness and actually generating something for your local community is incredible. It is without second in the aviation world. I don't believe it.
Okay, thank you. I'll group the next few questions, but first I wanted to ask one which I had in mind. When you showed the requirements, the hour requirements, so for example, for helicopter hours, to fly on a helicopter, you need helicopter hours prerequisite, so you need to have flown helicopter somewhere else.
Yes, it is. So it's very, very complicated. The regulation, EASA regulation has simplified it. You need 1,000 hours pilot in command to be an aircraft captain in a helicopter. So the regulation has simplified it. Sadly, our customers also have their input into how we operate. We have national customers, we have private customers, and we have governmental customers. And so quite often they will stipulate slightly different enhancements based on their safety case. So the grid up there is overly complicated, and I appreciate that. So yes, we do have nuance. If we work in, and I'll use the Lindsey Vonn rescue that we did the other day. So that's northern Italy. That's a contract in the mountains of North Italy, which has obviously snow, mountains, and winching. As a young pilot, you can't just go and do that. You're flying in mountainous terrain with 5,000 meter mountains, long line winching, power lines, icing. The complexity there is significant. So we need co-pilots with 1,000 hours so that if the commander is in any way incapacitated or can't function, they have absolute credibility and ability to cover that. But then if we look at some of our less demanding tasks in Southern Europe, then the regulation relaxes a little bit and our hours are less. But interestingly, if you started in Sicily, in Catania, as a HEMS pilot with lower hours, you can then build those hours and move further up the country, which is another way that we do developing our crews.
Okay. As I said, I'll group the next few questions. They're all about the air ambulance.
Yeah.
So first of all, simply how big is the air ambulance fleet? And then what are the requirements for, what are the requirements to join the air ambulance team?
Okay, so we have a big fleet. We've about 240 aircraft. About 30 of them are firefighting fixed wing. I would say our helicopter air ambulance fleets are around 160 aircraft, operating in Sweden all the way down to southern Europe, down to the Mediterranean. We have such a broad range. Again, I come back to my original question. As a co-pilot, fundamentally, what do you need? You need a CPLH and an IR in most of our contracts. Not all of them, but most of them. We would like you to have about 500 hours pilot in command or pilot in command under supervision. But we look more closely at what environments you've operated in rather than pure hours. Because if you have 1,000 hours flying an R-22, but you have 500 hours flying a turbine glass cockpit, then we're going to be more attracted to that. If you've operated in more varied environments, so you've worked in the Grand Canyon and worked in dusty environments, brownout environments, or you've been logging and worked moving trees around a forest, that skill set's really valuable to us. So we would look at that skill set more. And again, some of the more restrictive contracts, Language is important, winch is important, instrument ratings are all important. So it is a very varied picture, and I'm sorry I can't give you a single answer.
Yeah.
What I would encourage you to do is, if it's interest to you, get in touch with us, and we can then point you at specific areas that we would recommend you start. And I think that's the best way for us to approach it on your behalf.
And how do people get in touch with you? Maybe we can conclude on
Please
that.
come and see us at our stand. We have lots of information. Our lovely department, the guys there, all of our recruitment team will be there to help you. We have QR codes that you can get in touch with us online, and go to our website. Avincis has a website with all of the details, where we operate and what we do. So please, if you're curious about what we do, you want to see, come and see us, then hopefully we'll try and arrange something where you can come and visit us and get a feel for what we actually do.
Okay, thank you very much. To those of you
Thank you very much.